The forest is blanketed in a thick layer of snow, and the air is crisp and cold. The forest friends gather in the clearing, excited for a day of winter fun. Benny the bear stretched and said, "Good morning, everyone. It's a perfect day to play in the snow. Let's have some fun." Ollie the Owl excitedly said he loved the snow because there were so many things to do and explore. Ruby the rabbit hopped with joy and said this was going to be so much fun. She couldn't wait to build a snowman and go sledding. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, "Let's get started." He brought some hot cocoa for them to enjoy later. The friends set off through the forest, following a path lined with snow-covered trees and sparkling icicles. They arrived at a beautiful clearing perfect for their winter activities. With excitement and anticipation, the forest friends arrived at the clearing, ready to enjoy a day of snowy fun and adventure. The first activity is building a snowman. The friends gather snow and start shaping it into a large snowman, their laughter echoing through the clearing. Benny the bear smiled and said this is so much fun. He loved rolling the snow into big balls. Ollie the Owl happily said he loved adding the details like the carrot nose and button eyes. Ruby the rabbit nodded and said the snow was perfect for building. She couldn't wait to see their snowman come to life. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, "Let's make the best snowman ever." Next up is sledding. The friends find a gentle slope and take turns sliding down on their sleds, their laughter echoing across the clearing. Benny the bear excitedly said he loved sledding. It was so much fun. Ollie the Owl nodded and said the slope was perfect for sledding. They went so fast. Ruby the rabbit hopped with excitement and said this was so much fun. She loved the feeling of the wind in her fur. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, "Let's see who can go the farthest." After sledding, the friends decide to play with snowballs. They gather snow and start shaping it into balls, creating a pile of snowballs for fun games. Benny the bear smiled and said this is so much fun. He loved making snowballs. Ollie the Owl happily said the snow was perfect for shaping. It was so soft and fluffy. Ruby the rabbit nodded and said the snowballs looked so perfect. She couldn't wait to play with them. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, "Let's see who can make the most creative snowball structures." The friends playing with the snowballs, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Benny the bear said, "I love building with snowballs." Ollie the Owl nodded and said, "It's so much fun to see what we can create with snow." Ruby the rabbit smiled and said, "I love how we can play with just snowballs." After playing with snowballs, the friends head to a nearby frozen pond for ice skating. They lace up their skates and glide across the ice, their laughter echoing through the forest. Benny the bear said this is so much fun. "I love the feeling of skating on the ice." Ollie the Owl nodded and said the ice is so smooth. It's perfect for skating. Ruby the rabbit hopped with excitement and said this is amazing. "I love the feeling of gliding on the ice." Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, "Let's see who can do the best tricks on the ice." The friends skate around the pond, trying out spins, jumps, and other fun moves. Their laughter and cheers fill the air as they enjoy the ice skating. Benny the bear said, "I love ice skating. It's so exhilarating." Ollie the Owl nodded and said it's so much fun to try new moves on the ice. Ruby the rabbit smiled and said, I love how we can all skate together and have fun. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, let's keep skating and see what else we can do. After ice skating, the friends relaxed with their hot cocoa. They enjoy the warm drink, sharing stories and laughter as they sip. Benny the bear smiled and said, this hot cocoa is delicious. There's nothing like a warm drink on a cold day. Ollie the owl happily said the hot cocoa was so rich and creamy. It was a perfect drink for a snowy day. Ruby the rabbit nodded and said she loved hot cocoa. They were so sweet and melty. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, let's enjoy our hot cocoa and make more snow memories. As the sun begins to set, the friends gather their things and prepare to head home. They walk back through the forest, their hearts full of happiness and contentment. Benny the bear contentedly said this has been the perfect day. Playing in the snow was so much fun, and the company was even better. Ollie the owl nodded and said he agreed. There was something magical about a day in the snow. It made you feel so connected to nature and to each other. Ruby the rabbit smiled and said it was even better when you were with friends. She was so glad they could share this moment together. Sammy the squirrel said cheerfully, me too. Let's make this a tradition every winter. As they walked back, they noticed the sky turning a beautiful shade of pink and orange. They decided to stop for a moment to admire the sunset. Benny the bear said, look at that sunset. It's so beautiful. Ollie the owl nodded and said it's a perfect end to a perfect day. Ruby the rabbit smiled and said, I'm so glad we stopped to enjoy this moment together. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, let's make sure to watch the sunset every time we have an adventure. The friends continued their walk back home. The sky is now a deep blue, and the stars are beginning to twinkle. Benny the bear said, look at the stars. They are so bright tonight. Ollie the owl nodded and said it's a perfect night for stargazing. Let's find a spot to sit and watch the stars. Ruby the rabbit hopped with excitement and said this is going to be so much fun. I love looking at the stars. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, let's find a cozy spot and enjoy the night sky. The friends find a clearing with a perfect view of the sky. Benny the bear said this is so relaxing. The stars are so beautiful. Ollie the owl happily said, I love stargazing. It's so peaceful and calming. Ruby the rabbit nodded and said the stars look like diamonds in the sky. It's so magical. Sammy the squirrel grinned and said, let's see if we can find any constellations. The friends spent some time pointing out different constellations and sharing stories about the stars. Their laughter and chatter filled the air. Ruby the rabbit smiled and said, I love the stories behind the constellations. They are so fascinating. After stargazing, the friends decide to head back to their cozy home. They walk through the forest, their hearts full of happiness and contentment. Benny the bear contentedly said this has been the perfect night. Stargazing was so much fun, and the company was even better. Ollie the owl nodded and said he agreed. There was something magical about a night spent under the stars. It made you feel so connected to nature and to each other. Ruby the rabbit smiled and said it was even better when you were with friends. She was so glad they could share this moment together. Sammy the squirrel said cheerfully, me too. Let's make this a tradition every winter night. As they reach their homes, they say their goodbyes and head inside, feeling warm and content. Benny the bear said good night, everyone. I'm looking forward to our next adventure. Ollie the owl nodded and said, sweet dreams, friends. Let's make sure to have more stargazing nights in the future. Ruby the rabbit smiled and said, until our next adventure. I can't wait to see what fun we'll have next. Sammy the squirrel said cheerfully good night. I'm so grateful for all of you. The scene fades out as the friends snuggled in their homes, the forest glowing under the soft light of the stars. And so, the forest friends ended another amazing adventure, filled with the joy of playing in the snow and the warmth of their friendship. Until their next adventure. Thank you for liking my video and subscribe to my adventures with my forest friends.